Hi, I'm Dr. Crystal Brazier, and this video is about psychodynamic approaches. So let's dive in. Okay, a few concepts from the psychodynamic approach. Rather than this psychoanalytic approach that takes 3 to 5 sessions per week for potentially years, psychodynamic counseling turns toward the relationship. And so it is what you would see in any other counseling approach. It typically takes place once or twice a week with the client sitting up face to face with the counselor, allowing for therapeutic listening and therapeutic rapport to be built. And so the primary focus in the psychodynamic approach is on attachment style. And attachment style can be categorized as either secure or insecure. But then if the attachment style is insecure, it breaks down further. A person could be characterized as insecure anxious, as insecure avoidant, or as insecure disorganized. And if you want to learn more about that, I encourage you to look into it because attachment style is fascinating. Attachment style has been found to be quite predictive for success in relationships. Even though the psychodynamic approach is a little more deterministic, there is evidence to show that counseling, especially counseling specifically focused on attachment, can be used to help a person change their attachment style. So not only can they become aware of it and sort of cope with it, there is some evidence that it can be successful in actually moving a person from an insecure toward a more secure attachment style. And also, as Christians, we hypothesize that perhaps a person's attachment style toward others is in some ways impactful on their attachment style toward God. And so if a person is struggling to feel close to God, whether they are a believer who has by faith accepted Christ, but who feels as if God is far off, or if they are an unbeliever who it's preventing them from attaching to God, but from reaching faith because of their view of God, that God is far away, God is unpredictable, God is dangerous, all of these things, that by helping a person alter their attachment style, we might even be impacting their relationship with the Lord. So underneath the umbrella of the psychodynamic approach, there are several other approaches that have a lot of richness to add. And so you'd call yourself psychodynamic. If I asked you what your theory was and you adhered to this approach, you would say I'm psychodynamic. You wouldn't say I'm object relations or anything like that. But these sort of sub approaches under the psychodynamic theory can add a lot of insight and richness. So we know that Winnicott also looked at attachment, obviously, it's psychodynamic, but specifically looking at the idea of attachment and separation, and specifically studied this idea of a transitional object. So a transitional object can best be conceptualized when we think of a little one who's going, to visit someone safe, like, a grandparent or a relative or a family friend, or going into the church nursery or going to preschool or wherever. They're going into this environment and their primary attachment figure, their object, could be mother, could be father, could be somebody else, but it's the primary person to whom they've attached. That person will not be going into that situation with them. And so there can be comfort derived from a concrete representation of that attachment figure, or a concrete representation of the relationship in general. So a lot of times this might be seen by a whoopee, some kind of security blanket or something like that, that the child can take into that situation with them, that when they are in contact with it, it reminds them of their primary attachment figure and can elicit sort of a soothing response. And then self-psychology emphasizes attachment too, but it looks a lot at how we use our interpersonal relationships, they call them self-objects, to develop our own sense of self. So in other words, How do I view myself? How do I sense myself, even from an embodied perspective, based on my attachment to others and the perceived safety or unsafety of those interpersonal relationships? And then also under this category of the psychodynamic approach, we get Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages of development, which you will hopefully have encountered already in your sort of human growth and development course, maybe more than once if you took any psychology courses in your undergraduate time. But these stages are sort of basic psychological/social tasks that we need to master at different stages in order to progress to a latter developmental stage. During each psychosocial stage, there's a crisis, and we have to master and resolve that crisis in order to advance to the next stage. Okay, and some interventions from the psychodynamic approach. So the psychodynamic approach uses similar interventions techniques as Freudian psychoanalysis, but it adds in those core conditions of empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard, because now we're relating as two humans coming together rather than one human and a falsely blank slate. And we're also going to add in an attachment focus. So we're still going to be focused on how the past impacts the present, but now we're specifically focusing on attachment type interventions. And so we can see here that the idea that even a client's ability to securely attach to a counselor can help them sort of shift toward a more secure attachment style out in the world. This is the idea of parallel process. What occurs in therapy can maybe be generalized to other instances, situations, relationships in the real world of the client. All those other hours of the week when they're out living their lives, can a secure attachment experienced in therapy generalize to the ability to securely attach to friends, family, work relationships? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit here about a specific attachment-based intervention called TheraPlay. So TheraPlay is structured play therapy, and it combines children and parents together. It is not the same as child-centered play therapy, which is non-directive, non-structured, not totally. The playroom in itself is a structured environment, and the limits that the therapist sets in child-centered play therapy also adds structure. So child-centered play therapy is not structureless, but TheraPlay has more structure. And it's like child-parent relations therapy in that the child and the parents are in there together. TheraPlay was developed in 1967 in Chicago by Ann Jernberg, and the overall goal of TheraPlay is to enhance attachment, improving the relationship between safe adult and child through direct interactions that the qualified therapist facilitates. The method of TheraPlay is fun. It's intended to be fun, game-like, playful. It's physical. We're not talking about it. We're doing stuff the whole time. It's personal and interactive. And the counselor is a facilitator. The role of the counselor is off to the side, facilitating that fun, playful, personal interaction between child and safe adult. It replicates the natural, healthy interaction between parents and young children that tends to occur when the parents are able to attach. So this would be a modality specifically designed for children with healthy adults who are capable of attaching. And it might be especially helpful for children whose primary child givers early in those formative years was, for whatever reason, unable to securely attach to the child. So maybe that was because the child's primary caregiver had an addiction that disabled healthy attachment. Maybe it was because that primary caregiver was struggling from a debilitating psychological disorder, like major depressive disorder or a psychotic disorder or something, so that the parent couldn't attach because of their own suffering. Or maybe it was simply because that child or that parent, when they were a child, did not experience secure attachment. And so it's sort of that idea of we can't give what we don't have. This can also be a great modality for attachment disruption. So if there's been adoption, foster parents, as long as those adults are healthy enough to securely attach, then this is a great modality, especially if that attachment bond that TheraPlay helps facilitate is intended to last long term. So it might not be a good idea to do this with children in the foster care system where that placement is intended to be short term. But if the placement is long term, then this might be a great modality. Also has some evidence to support its use with children on the autism spectrum. So the roots of this method, again, are in early attachment work. And so here's sort of the model depicted in an image. So at the very center of the circle, TheraPlay is TheraPlay in action, the essence of TheraPlay and how it's practiced. So using the model of the healthy parent-infant experience, the therapist brings caregiver and older child, no longer infant, together to give them an active here and now experience of a new way of relating as attached. Then that inner light blue ring is the theoretical basis. So you'll see number 1, interactive and relationship based. Number 2, direct, here and now. Number 3, guided by the adult. Number 4, responsive, attuned, empathetic, and reflective. Number 5, preverbal, social, right brain level. Number 6, it should be multisensory. And number 7, playful. And so these are the core concepts that are used to understand the theory and the research that underlie every aspect of TheraPlay. And each core concept is solidly supported by research that underscores its importance in the interaction that leads to secure attachment and lifelong mental health. Then in that middle ring, which is the sort of warm orange and red color, that is the dimensions of TheraPlay. So you'll see that there's an engagement dimension, a nurture dimension, a challenge dimension, and a structure dimension. TheraPlay practitioners distinguish 4 basic dimensions of healthy parenting. And so these 4 dimensions of TheraPlay are supposed to mirror those 4 dimensions of healthy parenting. And these dimensions are used to plan treatment based on the specific needs of the parent and child. In other words, each parent-child combo, which would be considered a case, each case may bring different strengths as far as dimensions are concerned and different growth areas. And so it's nice to work on strengthening strengths some. That is a really wise thing to include in any treatment plan, is strengthening strengths. But it also, if we can assess for which dimensions are stronger and which dimensions are weaker, we can then target the majority of our time in each TheraPlay session toward intentionally working on strengthening those growth areas. And then that outer sort of middle blue area, middle toned blue area, is the goals. And so the goals are, there are 5 like very obvious goals of TheraPlay. The goal might be number 1, that the interactions between the parent and child will be characterized by playfulness, attunement, that it'll be here and now, that the engagement will be positive, and that that positive engagement will be sort of internalized by both the parent and the child as working models for how we are together, how we do life together. We do life together in a playful, attuned, present-focused, hopeful, positive way. Then the second goal is co-regulation of affect. So in other words, the parent or caregiver will learn to self-regulate, and then we'll learn to help facilitate regulation with the client through something called co-regulation. Now, sometimes students ask me, well, isn't that like codependency? And the answer is no, it's actually the opposite. So if a child learns to co-regulate with a safe object, a safe adult attachment figure, if they learn to co-regulate, then as they grow, they can internalize that co-regulation, and it leads to healthy self-regulation. Whereas if the child never learns to co-regulate with an adult who's regulated, who is able to achieve calm when they're dysregulated, go back into that sort of prefrontal cortex area that's both rational and logical, but also very connective, attuned. If the parent can't do that and can't help the child do that, then the child will always need someone else as they grow to adulthood. That adult will then always need someone else to regulate them. They will never be able to regulate themselves. And this is part of what we see in people with codependency. Now, keep in mind, codependency is not an actual diagnostic label. You won't find codependency in the DSM-5 as a diagnosis. This is a lay term, but it's a lay term that has a specific meaning. And part of that meaning is, as an adult, I can't regulate myself. I need others to be regulated so that I can be regulated. Whereas a healthy adult is able to self-regulate, but they learn that through co-regulation in childhood. Number 3, the goal is that it would be adult-guided, playful interaction, providing the foundation for positive social skills. So the experiences of adult-guided, playful interaction in their play would then sort of generalize to what's going on in the rest of these interactions with the child and adult outside of the therapy setting, but then also go with the child and play themselves out in the ways that they relate to other adults, like teachers, other caregivers, things like that. The goal is that, number 4, is that it would be responsive, attuned, and empathetic so that we can create a secure attachment. We've already talked a lot about that. And then goal 5 is that secure and healthy parent-child relationship will lead to lifelong good mental health. So it will generalize not only now in the child's life, but it will generalize to the future for that child as they grow. So let's take a look at a video that describes TheraPlay.
I love that game!
Play connects kids to their parents. That's really where it all begins. It's very powerful, and it's something that if you've missed it for any reason, it has its consequences.
When a mother and father interact with a baby, that is the food for right brain growth. They sing, they rock, they put him to bed at the right time, they pick him up at the right time, and the baby learns that there's somebody who's uniquely attuned to his needs.
The new brain research suggests that playful interactions between mothers and babies is extremely important in making children feel special and capable and valued. And it's this kind of play that we really picked up as our way of doing TheraPlay.
TheraPlay originated in the 1960s under Chicago's Head Start program.
Come on, jump to me. See, I got you right in the air.
Play is extremely important. It's what makes it possible for children to really enjoy life, feel competent and able to take on anything. So we took the model of parent-child interaction, the good parent and their baby, and we figured out how we play with 3- and 4-year-olds that would be similar to the play that parents did with their children. And our experience very quickly was that children who had been very withdrawn and not able to relate at all became much more outgoing. Children who were angry and acting out calmed down, they became more cooperative and did very well. So we soon saw that this model of playing the way parents play with their babies was making a huge difference.
Attachment is universal. We all have ways of taking care of our young and helping them prosper and survive and thrive. The form of it, how much eye contact there is, how much touch or whatever, and who does it, even in some societies, might take a somewhat different form. But somebody's got to do it.
Today, TheraPlay is practiced in over 35 countries,
Theraplay is a very special kind of therapy for children that's based primarily on the pattern of the way parents play and interact with their babies. It includes being able to respond appropriately to the child's needs and to regulate what's happening with the child. What we want to do is go back and build the basic foundation, which is the early building block of self-esteem, self-confidence, and connection that's involved in the formation of attachment. It's eye contact, it's touch, it's rhythm, it's singing, all of that kind of thing. So we're helping parents really attune to the needs of the child.
How did you find that?
Many of these playful activities are so simple and natural, but people forget about them. They get busy, children get busy, and I think just watching someone play with children and understanding that that could be something to try at home is very valuable.
Maggie lies over the ocean. My Maggie lies over the sea.
And they're always surprised at how responsive their children are, way up into the teens.
We have very comfortably used this kind of play in Theraplay with kids as they get older. Kids who have not had this kind of experience can be surprisingly accepting of it, even up into the 11, 12, 13. But what we generally do too is we begin to mix it with more talking about what's been happening during the week and how can we help them have an easier time. And then you come back to Theraplay for some of the fun stuff.
Champion pillow jumper.
Theraplay sessions are designed by the therapist to address the child's specific needs. Parents are included in the activities, which are based on 4 dimensions of healthy relationships: structure, engagement, nurture, and challenge. The games are fun and interactive, simple, yet powerful in their ability to build deep bonds.
A very nice big 1, 2, 3. She can jump off. 2, 3.
We see a lot of different kinds of children who can be helped by Theraplay. We've worked with the active, angry, acting out kinds of kids. We've worked with shy, withdrawn children. We've worked with children on the autism spectrum. And the kinds of problems they have, because they're so socially based, can be addressed by this kind of treatment, which really focuses on the social connection.
We want to do activities that will help the child to feel more confident or better and, happy. The nurture piece, which I did for the lotion, is not so much that there's any real healing properties to the lotion per se, but it's more an idea of inside they have a lot of old wounds, and I want them to know that I recognize that they have some things that need taken care of.
There are many reasons why a child might miss out on some of that. We work with high-risk families who perhaps the parents have not been well parented themselves. There may be substance abuse, there may be domestic violence, there may be poverty. We also work with low-risk families where things have been going along quite nicely, but something has happened that has made this child, made this family a little less secure in their connection. Kids really could benefit from being assured of their parents' presence, times when they really have their parents' undivided attention, and just to feel really connected.
You are good. You're better than good. You're great. Yes, you are. I think the most beneficial aspect of it for us was it taught us how to enjoy each other again. Because it had been a good long time before there was much enjoyment in each other's company. We'd sort of forgotten how to have a good time. So to come here and just play these goofy little games and really concentrate on each other, that was very beneficial for us.
We have a lot of confidence in the power of this play, just from case study after case study. But we're beginning to get some good scientific evidence. There's an ongoing research project in Finland for children who are in long-term foster care. And the outcome of a really relatively short intervention was that the children appear to be more connected to their foster parents, and behavior problems have reduced, and even 6 months or a year after the treatment ended, those gains have been maintained or increased.
Over time, there have been various people who have done small research studies. Now we're getting into some bigger ones, the kind that you really need to prove that it works with control groups. And not only a control group that doesn't get any treatment, but even a control group that's getting another kind of treatment. And those things are beginning to be published.
One of them has been completed in Germany, a longitudinal study that has excellent controls and very good outcome. And even after the treatment ended, there's still improvement.
One of the beauties about the kind of way we play with kids is you need very few things. The idea is actually you're kind of the play object. The games and so on, they're so silly, they're so simple.
1, 2, 3, go!
It doesn't have to be complicated. It's for the pleasure of it and the connection of it.
Go! All right. Go! Oh, yes,
And
you
the
are
laughter
strong.
and joy.
TheraPlay's ability to heal issues of attachment and security is particularly beneficial for at-risk foster and adoptive children.
All right, baby bird, there you go.
Children who have lost their first attachment person or never had a secure attachment at all don't know how to play. So parents of adopted and fostered children need a lot of extra support and help to read the cues or read the needs of the child who is in fact miscuing. These children come and they say, I can do it myself. I don't need you to take care of me. And they go about their business as if they were able to just manage all by themselves, where in fact they're constantly driven by the fear that no one will take care of them. They can't trust that anyone will be there when they need them. By using play, by responding to children in the way that healthy parents respond to their children, we can make a difference. We can change the patterns.
Okay, and so you see the website there, www.theraplay.org. I highly recommend that if you're interested in that, you look that up and see if there are trainings available in the DFW area for that. And I want to thank you for your attention to this presentation on psychodynamic approaches. While psychoanalysis is not typically a theory that most students in counseling programs would be adopting, the psychodynamic approach is, I believe, a fantastic approach that has a very rich understanding about what constitutes mental health and mental unhealth and how to help clients reach greater mental health, specifically through attaching securely to others. So thank you so much.